we have come to Acts chapter 14. And it came to pass in Lycaonium that they both went together into the synagogue of the Jews. And they so spoke that a great multitude, both of the Jews and the Gentiles, believed. But the unbelieving Jews, they stirred up the Gentiles and made their minds evil affected against the brethren. So a long time, therefore, they abode boldly and speaking boldly in the Lord, which gave testimony unto the word of his grace, and great signs and wonders were done by their hands. God was working mightily in those apostles of the first century. And he has down through the centuries at times worked great miracles and done wonders by some of his people. And they will be at the end time as well. But the multitude of the city was divided, part held with the Jews and part with the apostles. And when there was an assault made both of the Gentiles and also of the Jews with their leaders, to use them despitefully and to stone them, they, the apostles, were aware of it and fled unto Lystra and Derbe, cities of Lycaonia, and unto the region that lies round about. Then they preached the gospel. There they preached the gospel. Verse 8. And there sat a certain man at Lydia, impotent in his feet, being a cripple from his mother's womb, who had never walked. The same heard Paul speak, who, that's Paul, steadfastly beholding him, and perceiving that he had faith to be healed, said with a loud voice, Stand upon your feet. And he leaped and walked. Now, he'd never done that from his mother's womb. Can you understand fully the miracle that was done here? Fully understand that never ever being able to walk, those muscles never used to be walked or leaping. And all of a sudden he could do it. That was just one miracle upon another in that particular case. Verse 11. And when the people saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in the speech of Lycaonia, or Lycaonia, say get that right, Lycaonia, the gods are come down to us in the likeness of men. And they called Barnabas Jupiter and Paul Mercurius, because he was the chief speaker. So there must be something about that word and that particular god of theirs that was chief among the gods, or spoke more than the other so-called gods. Verse 13, then the priests of Jupiter, which was before their city, they brought oxen and garlands unto the gates, and would have done sacrifice with the people. Which, when the apostles Barnabas and Paul, notice this time around it's Barnabas and Paul, and sometimes it's Paul and Barnabas. So when Barnabas and Paul, when they heard of it, they rent their clothes and ran among the people, crying out and saying, Sirs, why do you do these things? We also are men of like passion with you, and preach unto you that we should turn from these vanities unto the living God, which made heaven and earth and the sea and all the things that are in them, who in times past suffered all nations to walk in their own ways. God at one time just allowed you to just go your own ways, do your own thing. Nevertheless, he left not himself without witness, in that he did good, and gave us rain from heaven, and fruitful seasons, filling our hearts with food and gladness. Indeed so. And with these sayings he scarcely restrained the people, that they did sacrifice to them. Verse 19. And there came hither Jews from Antioch and Iconium, who persuaded the people, and having stoned Paul, they drew him out of the city, supposing he had been dead. Howbeit, as the disciples stood round about him, he rose up, and he entered back into the city. And the next day he departed with Barnabas to Derbe. And when they had preached the gospel in that city, and had taught many, they turned again to Lystra, and to Iconium, and Antioch, confirming the lives of the disciples, and exalting or encouraging them, exhorting them to continue in the faith, and that we must through much tribulation enter the kingdom of God. And that's a true saying amongst many sayings of the Bible, that for some people, it's not everybody, it's not all Christians, but sometimes for some people, we must go through much trials and tribulation to enter the kingdom of God. And when they had ordained elders, with an S, elders in every church, and had prayed with fasting, they commended them to the Lord, on whom they believed. So notice they ordained elders, more than one, if possible. One of the truths of the New Testament is a local church should have more than one elder, if at all possible. More than one elder. Power should not be just in the hands of one elder, but there should be elders. And after they had passed through out of Pisidia, they came to Pamphylia. And when they had preached the word in Perga, they went down into Attalia. And there sailed to Antioch, from whence they had been recommended to the grace of God to work the work and to be fulfilling the work there. And when they had come and had gathered the church together, they rehearsed what God had done with them, and how he had opened the door of faith unto the Gentiles. And there they abode with the disciples, doing the work of God, and the Gentiles now coming into the truth of God and into the family of God.